And we go to Marcus Carlson, a corporate story that everyone in France has been watching.
Indeed, Francois. Hi there, everyone. French media giant Vivendi is entering exclusive talks to sell its telecoms unit SFR to the cable operator Numericable. That announcement is seen as a surprise. Expectations had been building that Vivendi would pick a rival bid from the conglomerate Bouygues instead. Experts say that it means that competition in the French telecoms market will remain fierce. Delana de Souza has more.
Vivendi is hanging up the phone on Bouygues. SFR's parent company has chosen Numericable as the preferred suitor for its telecom unit. Numericable's cash offer of nearly 12 billion euros was higher than that of Bouygues. Vivendi's board also says that France's competition watchdog is likely to clear a tie-up with Numericable faster. Had Bouygues won, the number of operators would have been reduced to 3. It will now remain at 4, and it sets the scene for tough competition.
Les économies nécessaires que devront faire les opérateurs.
The necessary savings which operators must make will continue if the lowering of prices different for each operator is maintained. There's a strong chance that the lowering of prices will continue.
Ce que je disais avant va se poursuivre.
Competition in the French mobile market was stepped up after the entrance of low-cost operator Free Mobile. Their entrance in 2012 saw prices drop to record lows. It was around then that SFR stopped being a cash generator for Vivendi. The government says it would have liked to see the number of operators decrease.
We're in favour of returning to 3 cell phone operators because we believe it won't be a problem for customers and it will stabilise a sector in which we have to invest.
If it is ultimately successful in its bid, Numericable stands to gain access to SFR's large retail network. The new entity will be the second largest mobile operator in France. For Vivendi, selling off SFR is an attempt to focus more on its media business. The company will now enter into 3 weeks of exclusive talks with Numericable's parent company, Altice.
And on this news that Vivendi is picking Numericable, both Numericable shares, I should say, and those of its parent company Altice, they have been soaring. Numericable closed more than 12% higher, as you can see right there, almost 13% higher, and Altice was up more than almost 8% at the close. Vivendi shares, they were stable though, and Bouygues shares, on the other hand, they tumbled, closing down around about 3% after Friday's session. Changing gears now, there are warnings that Russia's economy will pay the price as the Kremlin faces off with the West over Ukraine. American bank Goldman Sachs has lowered its forecast for Russian growth this year. The bank says the Russian economy will take a hit because of an outflow of capital sparked by the crisis. Goldman says that $45 billion have left Russia this year as investors are being turned off the country. The bank now predicts a 1% expansion this year. The previous forecast for Russia was for a 3% expansion, according to Goldman Sachs. And the Moscow market tumbled earlier and hit its lowest level since October 2009. It recouped some of those losses before the close, and the MICEX index ended down around 1% on Friday. Ever since the standoff over Crimea started, the Russian index has lost more than 16%. The sell-off started in earnest at the start of this month, when the Russian parliament gave President Putin the permission to send troops into Ukraine. We're going to take a closer look now at how other global markets are trading this session. In the United States this hour, the indices are trading pretty close to the flat line, ever so slightly above that flat line when it comes to the Dow Jones Industrial Average. It follows the worst session since early February on Thursday. Investors there seem to be staying on the sidelines ahead of that referendum in Crimea that we've been reporting about. That referendum taking place, of course, over the weekend. In Europe earlier, we saw a mixed picture as well when it comes to the main indices. The DAX was in positive territory, but that followed a sharp drop on Thursday. So I suppose only natural to see things equalizing a little bit. Still, though, that gain that we saw this session, it still was less than the drop we saw for the DAX on Thursday. Let's talk you through a few other stories that we're following for you. Chinese internet retailer Alibaba looks set to snub Hong Kong and list its shares in New York instead. That's according to the Financial Times, which says Alibaba is almost certain to head stateside. Alibaba's expected listing is set to become one of the biggest initial public offerings ever. The snub of Hong Kong follows its reluctance to accept the company's corporate governance structure. And if we stick with the Hong Kong theme, regulators in the city are accusing the Swiss banking giant UBS of rigging its benchmark interest rate. It follows a year-long investigation by the Hong Kong Monetary Authority, the city's de facto central bank. UBS has already been fined $1.5 billion by US, UK and Swiss regulators for manipulating interest rates. And BP can once again do business with the federal government in the United States. The oil giant was shut out of US government contracts after the Deepwater Horizon disaster in 2010, the biggest oil spill in American history. But now the government says BP has agreed to key improvements when it comes to safety and ethics. Okay, that is the business news for now. I'll be back again in around about an hour and a half's time. For now, though, back to François.
All right, many thanks for that, Marcus Carlson. It's time for sports. We have a breaking news story on his Twitter feed. The